Colleagues, good morning. Sincere apologies.
Morning, SG. How are you?
Morning, Dorothy. It's just one of those days when I'm just supposed to talk to you. Then this speaker calls, this one calls, and you know the bosses. You know your boss, Speaker Mudenda. You can't hold him. You can't tell him to hold on.
I know my student. He's my student.
Yes. Yeah. How are you, Dorcas?
Fine, thanks. How are you, SG?
I'm good, thank you. It's one of those Fridays where we're going crazy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, my sincere apologies, colleagues. Let's start with the main thing. Let's start with the contract, and then we'll move to the other issues. I recall getting an email from Dorothy where you wanted some consideration. So let's discuss that. I don't know if we can share the contract, Paulina. That one, just go to your emails and say contract. Okay, so we can discuss while she's looking for that one. Or you have it near Dorcas or Dorothy, your contract, you can share it?
Let me just look for it. Yes, I have it.
Okay.
So can let me see if I am able to share this. No, I'm not able.
You're
not able to share it?
Yeah, or you can email Paulina right now and she can share it.
Share it to save time because I'm sure she saved it in many of her files.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but let's discuss. Let's discuss first your experiences. How has it been? I know there's been the back and forth and other things, and yeah, how can we help?
Okay, just let me just a minute. Contract. I think our maybe you saw that when we developed the when we presented at the inception report, or prior to when we presented first the draft report, the additional areas that the technical working group was added. And then when we then presented, then they added again. I guess because they are coming from different
yes, institutions and interests.
Interests, yes. So if you then saw when I sent that first and foremost, when we sent in the very first report, which we then were corrected that no, that is, they just didn't want an academic paper. But I think that process also helped us to conceptualize, and I also want to think that you should not lose that draft, because it will also help you to understand some of the approaches. And then we then revised the report. Having revised the report, that's when we then looked at the very first part. We looked at the definitions, the UN and African human rights standards. So we had to look at the different standards, like what is domestic violence, how is it being defined under UN, what are the standards there under African human rights standards, and then SADC regulations. And that's when we submitted that paper, and it had about 4 areas which we had looked at. I think you've seen the different metrics that we have we have developed. And from there, because we were hoping that this paper is just going to be, it's going to give a brief background of what is obtaining in the region. But what we then saw was when we shared the technical working group again, we're now saying you have left this. Why are you not looking at anti-discrimination? Why are you not looking at harmful practices, whatever? So to them, we then started again updating this paper. But as we are updating, we are reviewing the laws, and we saw that these are the jigsaw puzzles that are supposed to go into the report, because eventually we had divided these laws into phases, but as manageable chunks, and then later put them together into the main report, which has the international human rights standards, the AU, and then SADC regulations, and then now zeroing in on the national laws. So we then saw that as we were now addressing these comments, we are doing the reviews. And you cannot do the review of, like, say, domestic violence, and then you finish with it without going back to the Constitution. So you would first look at the international laws, you look at the Constitution, you look at the laws, and then you then move on to the next phase of the laws. You do the same. And then, as you see, these laws are related. That's why they are under GBV. So if you notice in the latest draft, we have tried to do cross-referencing that, okay, we are discussing domestic violence under, say, 4.1. We will discuss further again these issues as they relate to sexual violence under 4.2.
Paulina, move up to the deliverables, please. Yeah.
Yeah. And we will also discuss these in relation to SRHR, or sexual harassment.
Violence,
So they are interrelated, because as you look at as you move to, say, to sexual harassment, you go back again to the international, you go back to the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? You go back to the laws, and then you then go, you then update. So what we have done is now we now have an updated draft of a report which has 7 laws. One on national domestic violence, 2 on sexual violence and child marriages, because we felt we cannot, in as much as the technical working group wants us to discuss child marriages alone, yes, we reviewed it alone, but it's also linked to sexual violence. So there's that, in order to avoid repetition, that's when we do some referencing that, say, on age of sexual consent, we have discussed here, but it's also important when we are discussing under sexual violence or under SRHR. And then we have also looked at laws on SRHR. We have looked on laws on sexual harassment. We have looked on laws on trafficking and sexual exploitation. And we have looked on laws on cyber security and cyber violence. And we have looked on laws on discrimination and gender equality. And as I said, they are interlinked, because discrimination perpetuates domestic, perpetuates sexual violence, increases child marriages, perpetuates violation of sexual reproductive health rights, it also increases sexual harassment, because people see you like as a sexual object. And you find that in trafficking and sexual exploitation, there is that element of sexual harassment, and cyber security, cyber violence is now a platform which is now used to perpetuate all these different forms of. women and girls are being groomed through the social media, even naming and shaming or revenge porn or whatever, you know. So that's what we have done. And then we are left with the laws on statelessness and refugees, and laws on economic GBV, and laws on health and COVID. What we have done so far is this is an ongoing review that we are now populating the matrix.
Paulina, please move to the deliverables in the contract. Sorry, Dorothy.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
We are populating the matrix on the statelessness and refugee, on economic GBV and health and COVID, because like we went into the constitutions, see to what extent these constitutions are promoting statelessness, or are actually increasing the risk of women and children be stateless. So we went into
vulnerabilities, yeah.
Yes. And also, like, even on the constitutional provisions, they might say everyone has a right to, it's about citizenship. But then if you then look inside, it's now about citizenship by birth, citizenship by registration and whatever. And then in between, there are people, groups of people who fall within the cracks. That's
stateless.
You might be born, your mother might be from Lesotho, but your father is from Nigeria. Therefore, the mother cannot confer citizenship on a child whose father is a foreigner. So we have already done that. So we are now populating. We are also looking at citizenship laws. We are also looking at refugees, laws on refugees. And then on health and COVID, we have gone to the constitutions to see the constitutional provisions that speak to declaration of disasters. And to see whether they are disasters that these disasters are also linked to natural disasters or health disasters, or maybe just something like a declaration when there is a war or a conflict. So we have already done that, and we are now populating and also reading around now COVID, whether there are any laws to do with disaster risk management laws in SADC, but we've seen that it's South Africa has. But it was on disaster risk management. We are also looking at public health laws to see whether they are responding to health disasters like all these H1N1, SARS, COVID. Yeah, so that is where we are. Then on laws on economic GBV, we are reviewing. We haven't started populating the matrix. So for now, that's what I can say, that we as we review, we are now going onto the paper and then inputting and then on the main paper, and then we cross-reference. And then we are also seeing to the sequence that if we start with this, maybe this one comes after and whatever. It's also about sequencing, which we are also, so that it flows.
No, thank you. I've appreciated the input, and I think you've seen also that it's becoming something that's very sellable to other organizations who appreciate the level of effort that has gone into the process. So I appreciate that. The only worry that I have is that you need to be clear. Paulina, what is that blue thing? Is she there?
Sorry.
Hello, Pauline.
Yes.
There's a blue thing on the computer, or is it just my computer?
Which one?
Okay, let's share the document again.
All right.
and then move to the deliverables.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate, but you must be very, and I'm speaking to you just from a contractual perspective at this point.
Yes.
You must be very clear that as you submit your request, you delineate things that were additions, and that nobody can basically say that it was assumed that when this happens, that should happen. And you must be clear that it's at the point of delivery, it's at the point of X that this has happened. And I delayed a little bit because I wanted to be sure it's 30% of what. If they agree to treat those as miscellaneous or as other issues that are coming in, then we need to look at how much are you thinking of at this point. I know UN Women what have been following me. They wanted to give me money for this research. There'll be nothing wrong if the principles are laid out and there's fairness in this, that you can be compensated for that. So I just want you to, I hear you, and I've always been worried about how scattered we are as a working group and how each one of us is bringing in their own interests from the organizational perspective. And there has to be reasonableness around what is the margin of really requesting people to move out of X to Y. We cannot just think that just because they signed a contract. And I'll be fair if I have to arbitrate on this matter, but you need to be clear in terms of how you are presenting it and what percentage are you asking for in terms of what you have done, because it can be a source of conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be a source of conflict in this regard. And by now, I know we did not pay you any amount, but the first part, the submission, the first draft was validated.
Okay.
After you presented, isn't it? They validated, but they gave you more things to follow through.
Yes, because the first draft, that's when we revised, and then we sent you the revised one. That's what we call the first draft. That's when we then got comments from, I think, from SADC.
Yes.
And that's when we also saw that SADC had their own interest on harmful practices and the like. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where that's what we have been in this draft that we have shared with you. We have
move
also
to the deliverables, Paulina.
We have
deliverables,
also we have also put we have also revised, especially on the harmful practices. And and because they were also talking about discrimination, which we had not touched. And we then went on to, because in the inception report, I know that other gentlemen were saying we should look at discrimination, and then we say, but it doesn't have to be very wide, because otherwise it becomes something else. So when this lady from SADC pointed out that we had not discussed discrimination, she was preempting us because we were going to discuss about it. So we have also then looked at the laws on discrimination and gender equality.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's do this. Yeah, I don't want you to raise the issue when it's too late. I've been probing these guys so that we have an opportunity for you to present, and then we must discuss those issues. But if I were both of you, I think you have submitted the first and second draft. Okay. In my view, I would have already invoiced. But it's also good that you discussed this matter earlier on. If I may ask, what margin of addition are you looking at?
Okay, maybe as I explained that so far we have just relied on a desk review. We have, and most of this information we have found it. So we have not done any stakeholder
engagement.
And we also saw that it might not be necessary.
It's repetition.
Yes.
It's repetition. And you are not part of the working group then. I told them, I said, guys, What these guys are doing is just for your ego and seeing a document because you've all budgeted for this. But the legal drafters are going to repeat this exercise all over again because there's no way they're going to draft laws without researching and seeing what exists where, what is it that they should call on X to look into because of the gaps that we're talking about. So maybe the best thing to do at this point would be to eliminate certain exercises like the ones you're talking about, because, you know, getting so many people to start looking at the contract and say, we have to add this amount and do this can be a headache.
Yes.
If you ask me. So I think about it. Let us discuss either Monday or something, or when you're free. When there's a position, then I'll convene a meeting. Meaning when you guys are firm and clear, we will agree on what to eliminate based on what we have already said. And now that we have the legal drafter on board, it will be easier for people to appreciate what I was talking about. Because even in the interviews, the legal drafters told them, no, you wasted your money. That's what we're going to do all over again. So I would rather we find a way of wrapping up, doing the metrics, consolidating, and really having the final submission, as opposed to doing the stakeholder engagement, because sometimes we overrate these engagements, when in fact people talk from without, whereas you went to the source of information to look at this. So if you write your submission to me, I will also prepare an appropriate response, having looked at what you're saying, and then we can sit in to then we can basically convene this group, and then you can present your submissions, because they've been so busy. I've been wanting to have you to have space to do a proper presentation, to organize yourself so that we are both not embarrassed in terms of where we are going.
Yes.
And I would encourage you to basically claim your 60%. Send us an invoice, claim your 60%, because we should be waiting on the 40% deliverable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that is what I thought we should ask, but just motivate for whatever it is sent to me. I'll look at it, and then I'll convene the working group. I don't think it should be everybody. I'll select a few, and we'll discuss this issue and finalize it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When is the deadline for your submission if we move the route of eliminating the stakeholder consultations?
Let me see where is. I'm trying to look at the contract.
Oh, it can be ongoing. You being linked up with a drafter. Yes. And seeing how you can, because if they're going to repeat, you might as well allow the drafter now to work with you so that the product is final. It saves both our time.
Okay.
That's just my thinking around this. Rather than you working on a parallel stream, the drafter will come and, then you can really have something that speaks to, because when you move, your inception report is not in here. But Paulina, go down. I think this was the end, actually.
Yeah, because I can see on the, because the contract duration, they're simply saying 40 days.
Yeah, but we've gone beyond that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone
and it
beyond
was
that.
Simply because we've not had an opportunity. If you ask me, I want to round it off for various reasons, because I know practically what happens in these processes. So if you can tell me which date will be convenient for you, give me several days so that we can convene the working group, do the presentation. What I'm going to do on email, I'm going to link you to the drafter.
Okay.
So that you can discuss and say you speak the same language. This is where we are. You may even find that you get refined in terms of how to approach and conclude this exercise. And if the drafter is going to have stakeholder consultations, why are you having them again? But I appreciate that I was working with people who did not appreciate the process. It was mainly from a theoretical, looking nice, thorough process than having been in a but we develop model laws all the time. We know what happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Dorcas, you are quiet.
Oh, no. I'm there and I'm following the processes, and yeah, from what Dorothy had said, initially we were working with 3 phases in the terms of reference, and then it moved to 6 phases when we did the inception, and we agreed on including discrimination with the technical working group and harmful practices. But we are now at 10 phases. By incorporating the comments that were coming in to say, no, we also want cyber laws. No, we also want issues to do with migration and so forth. So we are now at 10 phases from 3.
Okay. All right, let's do that. I don't know if there's anything else. I think let's consolidate. You send your invoice. I will go ahead and direct finance to pay out.
Thank you.
I know sending money to Zim is a problem, but I hope that, because I'm told we have to warn the bank, or you have to send us a letter to say this is my bank, this is whatever, so that your money doesn't get into problems, or you have an account elsewhere.
We have accounts here, the foreign accounts, and we also have stamped letters from the bank, which has like the intermediary banks and the like.
Okay, that's good. So please send that. What's the time now? Send it, before 12 it won't work, but send it because we do things electronically. Before 1 o'clock or Monday, we can do it. I'll ask accounts to deal with it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we appreciate us being linked to the drafter.
I'll do that right away.
Because as you saw when we're saying, having done this, we will need to refine our recommendations. So which would actually be good, that when we have meetings with the drafter, we can have tangible recommendations that they can then follow through.
Exactly. It's always good to link up, because the last time we did this process, we engaged somebody else. The drafting team just had to redo the whole thing again. But that was something else, because they also had their own weaknesses of context and other things. So I appreciate that at this phase, before we conclude, let's link you up with the drafter. And I'll definitely do that right away when we get off this call.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much, SG, just for the opportunity to do this work. It has been very enriching to know about the SADC region at such an in-depth level.
Yes, it's rewarding. Yes, it's rewarding, Dorcas. No, I appreciate, also, the fact that you 2 women got the job. It's always good, and I've not been disappointed in terms of engaging with you. So I think this is what we need to always uphold as women, and do the best that we can with integrity and the best, highest quality we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then I'll do that right away to link you up with the drafter.
Okay.
All right.
So thank you. We will sit down with Dorcas and then see how much we will ask for the additional the additional phases. Will be reasonable.
Yes. But if you are going to eliminate, also indicate that. But if the drafter after you discuss feels no, I will need you in the consultations, then it means your contract remains intact with the additions. Just think about it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. No.
Okay, then. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you
Enjoy
so
your
much.
weekend.
Be safe.
Yes. Wash your hands and don't eat too much. Start hugging over the weekend with relatives.
I just got a call from my daughter's school that they found out that there is one learner with COVID. So we have to rush and pick up our kids now.
Oh my God. This COVID, just ambushes. Sorry, Pauline. I hope everything is fine.
Yeah.
You can leave the meeting then.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry,
Thank
Paulina.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Okay, bye.